So I just want to close by saying how glad I am to be part of this community. I came to the Center on Law and Poverty 12 years ago with having only done criminal defense work, which was something I loved and was very proud of. But I came to the center looking for a role that could have some more positive and systemic and long-lasting results, and I feel very lucky that I found the Center on Law and Poverty. And I want to just tell you briefly about a man named Joe, who was a great inspiration for me. Joe was a dairy worker in a town near Los Lunas, New Mexico. And he grew up in New Mexico, married his high school sweetheart, and worked at a dairy as a milker. And one day he was attacked by a bull. It was just an accident. Bulls actually do roam around on dairies for particular reasons, which I'm not going to get into right now. But he was attacked by a bull, and he was severely injured and actually left permanently disabled. And because Joe was a dairy worker, he wasn't entitled to something that I suspect everybody in this room who has a job has, which is called workers' compensation. And there was this weird little phrase in our statute, in our Workers' Compensation Act, that said that farm and ranch laborers were not included in this act. So while the rest of us are entitled to this coverage, which means that if we're injured at work, we are entitled to health care coverage for the injury and to receive some lost wages for the time we're taking to recover. Well, Joe wasn't entitled to that. And he also didn't have health insurance, which almost no agricultural workers in our state have. And so because of just this accident that happened one day at work, this man who had had a decent life in New Mexico was thrown into deep poverty. And it was really a crisis for him, his wife, and his 5 children. And Joe wasn't and isn't alone. I've met hundreds of field workers who live in a shelter in El Paso. And they live in a shelter in El Paso because we don't have a shelter for field workers in New Mexico. And even though these men and women work 12-hour days in our fields picking onions and picking chili, they don't have enough money to afford an apartment. So they get bused from this shelter in El Paso where it's filled to overflow, and sometimes folks are sleeping on cardboard on the sidewalk. They get picked up in the middle of the night and bused to fields around Deming and around Hatch, put in a 10-hour day, and then get bused back and dropped off at the shelter. So these men and women really left a strong mark on me. And they really have been an inspiration for me, and I think many of us at the center, that men and women who are working hard in our state should have their basic needs met. And this is the work that we do at the Center on Law and Poverty, not just for field workers, but for all New Mexicans who don't have things like access to health care and food and housing and decent pay. And so it's because of men and women that I've just mentioned, it's because of them that I'm going to say that I'm not embarrassed to ask you all to make an additional contribution to the Center on Law and Poverty. And I know that all of you just being here tonight have already made a contribution, and all of you, many of you, have made many contributions to us over the years. But at this time, I am going to ask all of you to dig a little deeper. And I'm going to ask all of you, if you've got some money in your pocket, to reach in. I'm looking at my children. Do you have any money in your pockets? Because if you do, I want you to throw it in the pot. Because with additional money, we can do additional work, and we can do the work together. And we all know that we have so much work to do. So on your chairs, I believe you've all found an envelope We're going to take a few minutes and ask you to look at those, to fill them out. You can make a pledge. You can give us cash, credit card. You can write a check. There are folks here with credit card swipers if you want to do that. But I really am just going to pause for a minute and ask all of you to please make an additional contribution to the center so that we can continue our work together to address poverty in our state. Thank you. Oh, I forgot to tell you, you can write us a note. And yeah, that's something important that we would actually like to hear from all of you in the room. If there's something that you'd like to tell us, we will review those notes for sure. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I actually see a lot of activity in the room, which is a good sign. So in closing, I just want to thank some of the many people who have contributed to this evening. Thank you to everyone at the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center for providing us with this beautiful venue and sponsoring some of the costs of this event tonight. We really appreciate that. Thank you to Dan Dowling, who provided music at the reception earlier this evening. Thank you to all of those of you who were on our host committee who really helped us get the word out about this event and helped get so many people here tonight. And we want to, thank you. We want to extend a special thank you to the people who sponsored this event, and especially to our Defender Circle sponsor, Friedman, Boyd, Hollander, Goldberg, Urias, and Ward. Thank you very much. And finally, a special thank you to our Champion Circle sponsor, IDEUM. IDEUM, in addition to providing significant financial support, also provided significant technical and communication support to get us ready for this evening. And finally, thank you to all of you for being here this evening. And I just want to invite you out into the courtyard. There is going to be a dance by the Jemez Pueblo dancers led by Emmett Yepa. So good evening, everybody. Thank you.